Hey guys, Keith here. Okay, so today I got a new laptop and I thought I would set up the build environment for xLights and take the opportunity to share the experience, warts and all. So the place I'm going to start, given it's a Windows machine, I'm going to start with Visual Studio. And here we just need the community version of Visual Studio. So we click the download here and we wait. Downloads a little executable, which makes it feel really good. It happens really quickly. Unfortunately, at this point, it's basically going to send us through a huge number of installation processes. So I'm going to be silent so I can speed the video up later, and you don't have to watch all of this at its real pace. So at this point, you may be getting a little bit excited and thinking, oh, it's almost done. It's just getting everything ready. But yeah, no. All that it's done is download the installer, which now, of course, has to do all the hard work of doing the installation. Unfortunately, it's actually going to prompt me and ask me if there are a couple of things that I'd like to install. So I get to choose what sort of development I'm going to do. So here's where we get to choose some things. So we're going to be doing desktop development with C++. So we're going to grab all of that. I may do some Node.js development, so let's grab that as well while we're at it. We're not going to do mobile development. .NET, and I do some .NET development as well, so I'm going to grab the .NET. You won't really need that. The only one you're really going to need here is desktop development. If we have a quick look inside the runtime components here, you can see that there's a huge number of things it could have installed, but it didn't get all of them. But it has grabbed MS Build. It has grabbed the build tools. I may grab the Spectre mitigated lives, otherwise I run into problems later on. It's not essential. We generally don't turn those on. Most of this stuff I don't need. The Windows SDK is pretty important, so that's there, which is all good. I'm only working in English, so that's all I really need to do. And it's chosen the various default locations. I always find it fascinating that it stores it in these 32-bit locations, but there you go. All right. So sounds good. We'll click on install. You can see it's going to take up 12.21 gigabytes of space. So it's not a small thing. So it's going to take a while. So again, we're going to speed it all up. Okay, so we're installed. Now it's time to sign in. So here I sign in with my Microsoft account. Everything takes a long time. Okay, so it's logged me in. Yet more setup work. And finally, hopefully we'll have a Visual Studio installation. This is not the last of the slow processes, although this is probably one of the slower ones, although obviously it depends on the speed of your internet. So it's logged on, so that's great, we can kill it, and we're done with Visual Studio installation. The next thing we need to do is install WX Widgets or download WX Widgets. You can find that here in the WX Widgets downloads. In the case of here, we're going to go with the latest release, which is 3.13. So we'll grab the zip file download of that. It looks like I've already downloaded it. Let's not do it again. So we'll quickly go into the downloads folder. We'll grab WX Widgets. There it is there. We'll open that zip file up. All looks good. Now we need to do create a location. So I'm going to create a new xLights folder here. And within the xLights folder, I'm actually going to create a WX Widgets folder. Now, everything assumes that the WX Widgets folder is called WX Widgets. So we have to create a WX Widgets folder. And then we can grab, okay, we don't want that one. We want this one here. Sorry, we need to grab that zip file, which we downloaded. So sorry, another Explorer. Go back to that WX Widgets file. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to grab everything in here and we're going to dump it into the WX Widgets folder. The next thing that we're going to need to do is we're going to want to use Git and pull down a copy of the xLights repository. So while WX Widgets is unzipping into the WX Widgets folder, we're going to go and we're going to start up a Git client. In this case, I use SmartGit. SmartGit's free to use if you're just using it for personal use and open source projects, which is all I use it for. So we'll download that. Okay, we want to clone an existing repository, which sounds good. Now we need to go and we need to go and grab the xLights repository. So the xLights repository, we can just go to the xLights homepage, and from there we can jump over to issue tracking, which is on GitHub. We can go to the code page and we can click this clone or download button. We're going to copy the Git repository link. We're going to come back over to here. We're going to paste that in. Go next. Yep, we're going to grab the master. Now we need to find a place to put it. So we're going to put it inside the xLights folder here. And I believe what it will do is it'll create another xLights folder underneath here, which is exactly what I want. It's really important that the xLights repository is installed at the same level as the WX widgets, because all of the reference paths within xLights all assume that there is a WX widgets folder at the same level as xLights. In this case, I'm going to have xLights/xLights, and there's actually even another xLights within it, but that's okay. So we'll select that folder there. That looks good. We'll click Finish, and now it will go off and it will try to download the repository. Hopefully, it's going to create me an xLights folder here. Yep. Oh, it's called it xlights.get. That's not great. Definitely don't want it called xlights.get. We'll rename it when it's done, and we'll have to do some funkiness to get it fixed, but that's okay. So we'll let it clone. Our unzipping is proceeding very slowly, but it's getting there. And our clone will take even longer, I would imagine. It's got a fair bit of stuff to download. 73. Okay, our WX widgets is almost unzipped. The next thing we're going to have to do is we're going to have to compile WX widgets. Now, technically, it depends. If you're building the release build, you really don't have to build WX widgets all the way, because most of WX widgets is already compiled and included in the xLights repository. If you want to do the debug build, then you will need to compile it, because there's some DLLs that are quite large, or libraries that are quite large that we don't include. And so you're going to have to build those yourself. I'm assuming right now that you're building this to create a release version because you maybe want to gain access to a pre-release version of xLights. Just grab something before it's actually been released, but you may be downloading this to install to do some development, in which case you're obviously going to want the debug builds, and you're going to have to do a little bit more work. So, so let's grab, actually, probably the easiest way is to go back into our WX widgets folder. If we go into our WX widgets folder, I think it's the build directory from memory, Microsoft Windows. Okay, there's a whole bunch of project files, and somewhere down here there'll be some WX widgets solution files. There we are. We want to grab the latest. Now, this is Visual C 16. We're running Visual C 19. It's not a problem. It'll update the solution file as we go. Now, before we start to build WX widgets, we actually have to take a quick look at the xLights README file, because there's some things that we need to do to prepare WX widgets before we build it. So for that, we're going to head back over to GitHub, just because I can do this before it all downloads, and we're going to look at the readme.windows file here. And we'll make it a little bit bigger if we can. Okay. Now we're not doing MinGW or MinGW 64-bit. Visual Studio, this looks better. So install Visual Studio 2017. Well, I use 19, but that's okay. I should update that. Download and build WX widgets. It says 311. We're actually using 313, so again, I need to update that. So we've done all of that. Now we need to edit this file here. So we need to go into this folder here, and we need to edit that file. So that was in WX widgets, include, what was it, include WX MSW, and it's called setup.h. So we'll go to setup.h, that's the file there. You can edit that in Notepad++. So now we need to find the right statement. So the easiest thing to do is to we're just going to find this text. So there it is there. Use unsafe. Use, it's not the right line. That's not the right line. There it is. That's the line we want to change. So what I would typically do is I'd copy this line and then I would change that to 1. Okay, we now need to find this use stood containers. So we'll find that again, see if we can find it. There it is. It says hash define use stood containers. It says 0. Sorry, use, no, that's not the right one. There it is there. So we're going to change that to 1. Still getting used to this keyboard. Okay. All right. Now we need to make a code change in here. Now I thought this, I could be wrong. I thought, yeah, we'd got rid of this. Yeah, see, I've updated this section here and haven't updated the lower section. So we've made these 2 changes which we needed to do, but we haven't, well, we don't need to make this change here. I'm pretty sure that these lines aren't anymore in 313. So that one's okay. So we'll save that. Let's just quickly double check that file though. WX Widgets source MSW. So WX Widgets source Microsoft Windows any button.cpp. Whoops. There it is there. Oops, I didn't actually want to do that. Oh, we can change it. Let's find Notepad++. Is it there? It's not there. Browse for it. See, program files. You see how fresh my install is. I like opening source files in Notepad++ rather than in Visual Studio, except I just did that wrong. This is why I don't like opening things in Visual Studio, because it takes forever. Anyway, so it says here line 1138, and we're going to search for this. So it's still loading. This is why you would never want to use Visual Studio, just to edit source files on a random basis. It's still loading. See, that line is no longer in there. Again, why you don't want to use Visual Studio just for randomly editing random text files. Okay, so that all looks good at this point. So we saved the setup.h file. Now it's time to open it. Now it says, well, do I want to do this? No, we clearly don't want to do that. And now we're opening up WX Widgets with that new setup.h file with all its edits in place, etc. What else were we doing? Oh, that's right, we were replicating our Git repository. Okay, that seems to have come down. Can we rename this? We can. Let's get rid of the Git and rename it. Looks good. All right, so everything's here. Okay, this is a brand new install. I do want the build toolbar up here. Let's click the build icon. And we can't see anything because there's no output. So we need to go up and view and find the output window. Okay, there's the output window. Now, you can see that WX Widgets built very quickly then. And the reason it builds very quickly is because the first time through, it's just actually moved some files around. It hasn't actually built the library at all. And so what you'll have to do is you have to rebuild it again and again. Okay. Build solution. It was just building the one project. Okay, so now we'll let it go off and compile. This one's building the debug Win32. That's actually not that useful. let's wait for the damn Zoom toolbar to disappear. Let's stop that build. All right, let's go to our release version and let's go to Win64. I'm going to be dropping the support for Win32 pretty soon now. Let's just quickly build those header files again, which it did. Now we can build the overall project and we'll let it run in the background for a while. This chews up a lot of CPU, so the machine will be sluggish while this is happening. Okay, let's go back to our README here. So most of this you don't really need to worry about. Everything's pretty much here, and then it says we can just go and build the xLights project. We'll see if that happens. We'll let this run. I'll shut up for a little while, and we'll let this build, and then we'll come back and we'll try and see if we can get xLights to build. Okay, so a few things failed. Okay, that's interesting. Seems like a common error. Let's quickly go and take a look at it. Oh, I put a single slash in instead of a double slash, so that was my fault. So we'll save that and we'll go back and we'll build it all again. I should go back and fix that file back up, the original file, because it actually copied the file around. So we should fix up the original file here as well. Otherwise, every time I try to build every other type of release, we'll have the same problem. So fix it at source. Okay, it's failed again. Cannot access a log file because it's being used by another process. All right, odds are that's a temporary problem, possibly because of the number of things compiling at once. Let's go back and do the build again. doing regex, so it's pretty close to done down here. All right, so it seems to have built. So what we'll do is we will close this down and let's go fire up xLights and see whether we can get xLights to build. So we'll go to the xLights folder that we installed everything into. Close a few things down here that we don't need. Okay, there's our xLights folder. We'll go into the xLights folder itself. And down here will be an xLights solution file. Now what we'll do is we'll build the release version. Actually, what we're going to do is let's go to the build scripts, MSW, and there is a package Windows release Visual Studio X64 only. That's the one we want. Let's build this. So what this is going to do is this is actually going to go through and attempt to build all of the programs in xLights. So it starts with xFade. Which is good because if it's going to fail because of environmental reasons, it's better to have it fail on a small project than a big project. This will also take a fair while, but we'll stick it until this one compiles. And then if this one compiles okay, once again, I'll start to accelerate things and we'll go through and we'll see how it goes with the rest of the environments. So xFade obviously is the tool that is useful for live sequencing or live presenting lights using two copies of xLights and fading between the two. So it's a reasonably small program, not quite as small as xCapture, but still pretty small. Okay, so it compiled okay, now it's linking. The link will take a little bit of time. Always seems to be the slowest part of the process. Okay, we've got a few issues here, but it's succeeded. So basically it's complaining there about port MIDI not having a PDB file. That's okay. Obviously on my other machine I had one. I should probably fix that up so that it doesn't refer to the PDB file, but that's okay. So now it's going off and we'll fast forward this now and let the rest of it compile. Maybe bring up our task manager and see what our CPU is doing. Not working maybe as hard as you'd expect it to be. Here you get a bunch of warnings. This is because there's some code in the way that we're using our video and audio library that really needs to be updated. Okay, so the link's almost done. Once the link's done, it will then go and package up the installation. Although in this case, that's going to fail because I didn't install setup, which is the setup utility that generates the actual release package files. But we'll let it fail and we'll go back and we'll reinstall setup and then we can run it again. And thanks to the beauty of the build process, it won't have to rebuild everything, so it'll be pretty quick. It'll still try, but it won't need to. Once the first build's done, it's a little bit faster. Also, I definitely haven't optimized this to run on my laptop. It wasn't using all the CPUs and it should have been when it was compiling at least. So there's a few little tweaks I'm going to have to do to optimize it to ensure it fully exploits. So more of those warnings. These warnings aren't important. They're just saying that the program debugger database that was associated with one of the libraries was meant to be there and it wasn't. Clearly, I need to go back and recompile those on my other laptop and get rid of the PDB file reference. And now it's failed. So because it cannot find the setup program. So good, xLights is compiled, but it's not quite in installable state yet. So the next thing we need to do is to go back and install setup. Now, again, I've downloaded it. The link is here. I will show you quickly. This link here will get you to the setup. I just downloaded the main install file. It's called setup. So we'll quickly go back to our downloads folder. There's setup. We'll install that. There it is. Install for all users. Okay. I think we pretty much take all the defaults. Yep, install location. Sure, whatever. Yep, looks good. Install. And done. Oops, accidentally ran it. We don't need to run it. Now we'll go back to our file here and we will rebuild the x64 only. This time it's going to run a bit faster. It'll still try and compile each one, but each one it will look at, it'll say, oh, that's already built. I don't need to do anything else. So this should go through pretty quick. Okay, still didn't like that. Oh, okay, the reason it doesn't seem to have liked it is it looking in program files x86. I'm not sure that's where I actually installed it to. Program files. Let's have a look in program files itself. Oh, it's not there. Program files x86. Setup 6. It was looking for setup 5. So that's why it failed. Okay, so we're going to quickly edit this file. I will, of course, update these. We'll change that to setup 6. Save that. And now we can go back and try it one more time. Okay, so now it's building the setup file, which went exceptionally fast. Why did that go so fast? Compile aborted. This file here does not exist. Okay, so the reason this is failing is because I haven't installed MinGW. So I'm going to have to go and grab the 64-bit version of MinGW. Rather than proceeding with that, let me go back here because here it may have given me some instructions up here. Okay, I'm going to go here to this link here instead. So I'm going to cancel that. And then I'm going to go here and whoops. And it tells me in the README, it says I want to click the x8664 POSIX SEH link. This one here. So I'm going to click on that one and it will download. These are reasonably big as well. So it's going to take about 20 minutes by the sounds of it. Okay, so this download has completed. Let's open in folder. Open with MinGW. Okay, so here it is. Now we just need to unzip that into the location that it was expecting to find it in. Okay, so that was this location here. So MinGW-W64, so we have to go and create that folder. So we'll go there. Yeah, let's go here. Let's go to C, program files, create a new folder. MinGW-64, I think it was. MinGW-W64. So we'll have to change that. MinGW W64, so there it is. Now, still we need to create, this x86. Wow, that's a long thing to remember. All right, let's do it a bit at a time. x86 underscore 64. New folder, x86 underscore 64. You know what would be easier is if we were to put this aside up here maybe, and then x86-8.1.0-POSIX-SEH-RT underscore B 6-rev 0. We do that. Now we create a folder, min-gw64, and that is the folder that we want to put all of this into. So hopefully that'll quickly decompress. We can close this down now. And we can go back to here. It's almost done. Just optimistically. There we go. It's done. Now we come back to here. We try it one more time. It'll go through and build again. Well, hopefully it'll build again. And then we'll package it up. There's xschedule. That's xLights building. Nothing to do. Prepare all the files. No, it still didn't like that. Okay, let's see. Let's check out our folder here. See program files, min-gw-64/x86-64-8.1.0-POSIX-SEH-RT underscore V6-rev0 min-gw64. And let's just quickly check in that bin folder. Oh, okay, it didn't finish. Oh, because it, it was asking for permission. Okay. Now those files should be, we'll check while we're at it before we try again. Okay, there's the libgcc. Yep, there it is. Okay, I think we're good now. One more time. All right, so again, it quickly builds through. It doesn't have anything to do, but it goes through each of the build steps to make sure they're up to date. There goes xschedule, daemon. There's xLights. It's okay. Now it does the compress. Didn't finish that quickly this time. That's expected. It does take a little while to build the setup file. Just packing up the executables and the like is what takes the time. All right, the map file. The map file is the map to where every function is, so that when we do a crash dump, we can display which functions it crashed in, which helps us greatly when we go to debug things when you submit your crash logs. And while this happens, if we go into the output folder here, we'll see that it is building a release file, which is exactly the same sort of file that you would normally download from the xlights.org. Obviously, it's not quite done yet, only being 11 meg in size. We expect this to go to 40 odd meg from memory. So it's still got a bit of work left to do. Still got quite a bit of work to do. There's the codec files. These are all the things for reading video and processing the audio files. Okay. All right. It's almost done. Finishes off the executable and it's done. And we've ended up with a file that's about 44 meg. So done. So that was xLights installing Visual Studio, installing WX Widgets, compiling it, having to install MinGW in order to ensure we've got the missing DLL that we wanted to include in the setup. I may fix that so that you don't have to have the MinGW and just save ourselves some time. And yeah, so hopefully those people who want to build it. Now, if you want to build debug, you'll have a few more issues, but I'm not going to go through that here. Most people who get into this and are doing debugging know how to solve most of those sorts of problems. This is mainly for those people that just want to build it and aren't necessarily familiar with all the build chain. So thanks, guys.